Hello, Eckart.
Hello.
You're a philosophical practitioner and a psychologist in Austria, and you do philosophical counseling, among other things, and you also give seminars in philosophical practice. I imagine that most of the people that come to your work are not related to philosophy. They don't have a degree in philosophy. So how is philosophy relevant to a person who is not a philosopher?
Well, actually, as I see it, is that everybody necessarily is a philosopher. Since people didn't study philosophy, they are, as I call it, lay philosophers. And so what I offer is, as a professional philosopher, I offer these lay philosophers support in different ways. For instance, in the seminars, if they talk about their worldview, the life philosophy, we discuss it, we work on it, and sometimes it's very interesting to see how implicit concepts about the world come to light. They are getting explicit, and there are two different ways. If they have some concepts which are not so good, which are not life supporting, then they produce trouble because they disturb the experience. The concept disturbs the experience, limits the perception and the openness. And then if the concept gets wider, because you see it's not helpful. For instance, a metaphysical concept like a punishing God is not very helpful in life. It makes a lot of trouble. Then it opens up. But on the other hand, if there's, it's also very helpful just to make the implicit explicit. And some people are really astonished. They said, I didn't know what richness of concepts and of insights I had in myself. Then it's a kind of midwifery, art of midwifery, like Socrates said.
So when you talk about the implicit, it's an implicit philosophy. It's that people have a certain theory or a certain worldview, and how is it expressed before they come to your workshop?
Implicit means, in this case, that they don't even really know that it presents itself in, that's how it is. A worldview is represented as the world is like this. Image of man in anthropology is presented like man is such and such. And then if it's clear that it's not, man is not such and such, but it's my image of man, it's my image of the world, my image of God or transcendence, then you get the freedom to really look at it and see, it's a very good conception. Or this is, I took it over. It's not really mine. If I really look at it, I would say, no, it's not. Definitely it's not true. Although I believed it because I didn't know that it's a concept. I thought I had the implicit meaning. That's how it is, but nothing is as it is. Nothing.
Yeah. So what happens in the process when people start to become aware of their philosophy or of their worldview? Is it a shock? Is it a relief?
It's rarely a shock. Only if you discover that you have some negative concepts. I once worked with a theologian who was very shocked that he said, I thought that I had this punishing God abandoned during my study, and now I see that I'm still full of it. This was kind of shock, but then it was a relief because he could cleanse his image of God and got free of it. So first it may be, what is it? I didn't realize that it's my concept. Right. But usually it's a relief, it's a deepening, it's an opening, it's sense, constituting sense, meaning. That's very rewarding, very beneficial process, usually.
Interesting. Can you give an example a little bit more specific and concrete?
I have one example. I remember a woman. She even studied psychology, and she lost her cat. She had 3 cats and one disappeared. And this was, for her, it was a catastrophe because she had a very close connection to it. And then she discovered that she was helpless. And then she discovered herself to look for help somewhere, and she discovered herself to pray. But then she said, how can you pray? You don't believe in God. And then she was startled in this seminar, and then I started to work with her, and what came out is that she sent some message into the space, and we got deeper into it, and then it was a kind of inner side. She didn't need any concept of a personal God, but she got comfort from connecting with her conception of the universe, of the totality. It was a very subtle concept of inner space, of inner dimension, of opening, and she sent some message, and she got some echo, and it was very beneficial for her. And so her concept that she needed a concept of God disappeared, and she just was in the process, and she got a comfort. And then from this immediately she started. I remember talking with my dying mother, and there she had a similar experience, but she had forgotten it. She really felt some support being carried without having any clear name about the force which was behind it. That was very, very impressing. You need not specific words, but still the effect is very clear. It's the emotion, the strength. She was surprised that she got the strength out of it, and an energy and the support. Very deep process then.
Very interesting. So Eckart, I understand that every person is a philosopher in a sense because they have their own worldview in an implicit way, or their own philosophical theories in their own way. But why is it important that the person would reflect on this worldview and make it explicit? What is the importance of that?
Well, if you don't do it, then you may realize the concept of other people, but you don't realize your own concept because you are in it. And it's interesting that philosophers are familiar in discussing the worldviews of others, of historical figures, or in the context of philosophical practitioners to deal with clients, with people who come to them. But nevertheless, it may be that their own worldview has never really been reflected, and so they, for instance, they believe, of course, it's clear that there is no God, for instance, because it's for them it's truth, but it's just a worldview, and it's really, I think it's very important and even very dangerous if a philosopher has no reflection of his own worldview, but he has an assumption and believes in a way that it's true, but it's just worldview. Another person has a very different worldview, and then it's really not very good way to deal with another person, because you judge him in an implicit way. You judge him and, okay, you believe in God. If you need it, as Cosmo will, mercy for everybody, you need it for comfort, and it's not a very good attitude.
Yeah. Okay, so if I'm not aware of my own worldview, if I have not reflected on my own worldview, then I'm insensitive and judgmental, right, and biased about other people's worldview.
Right, because then I have the belief system, the world is like this, instead of that's my perception, that's my concept of the world, and there are different worldviews, and there's no absolute truth in worldviews.
I understand. So now you talked about the importance of reflecting on my own worldview if I am a philosophical practitioner. But what about John the driver and Mary the banker? Why is it important that they would reflect on their philosophy, on their worldview?
First, it's most of the people with whom I worked realize that other people have different worldviews. If you're a taxi driver, you're confronted with people from different nations, different worldviews, and it's very difficult not to judge others because if you are in a rigid worldview and you have another person, you meet another person wherever, and he has a different worldview, then usually people say mine is right and yours wrong, and it's completely different. I said that's my worldview. What is yours? And what is beneficial? What is helpful? And what may not be helpful? If I use God to throw bombs, it's not very useful, and it doesn't matter if God exists or not. I don't believe that God asks people to kill other people in His name. But that makes it encounter with people from different cultures difficult or more easy. And everywhere in the world, you always meet people from different attitudes, different worldviews, different religion, opinions.
So if I understand correctly what you say, that reflecting and being aware of my own worldview is a way of opening myself to to broader horizons of experiences in myself, in others around me.
Right, and helps you to encounter people with a different attitude, to be more open, to be less judgmental, and to be able to understand a person whose worldview is very different, and to discuss it with another person without judgment, just to say, okay, and what does it do for you? And then you can see if it's a good worldview or not. You can see it on the results in his life of the person.
A not good worldview is one that is too rigid and limited and closed to other possible experiences.
Right, and makes problems for the person who has this worldview.
Okay.
That's how you can judge in a way.
Okay.
But is it of help for you, or does it make a lot of trouble? And if it makes a lot of trouble, then I would say, well, maybe you can change your concept to get less trouble from this. That's not that I judge it's not a good concept for me, but for you. Yeah. That's my main
for me as a counselee or as a person who's
whatever. The other person is not judged from my perspective, but from his own. Okay. Then I can see with this concept you have troubles in your life, and I can see it clearly, and then you can see it also. And then I change my concept.
Well, Eckart, thank you. Let's hope that more philosophical practitioners and people in general work on understanding their own implicit worldview.
Would be of help. Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.